the Healing Half. My name is Mickey Spear. I am an author, musician, and talk show host. And this show is a quick 30-minute break in your week where we can learn how to address our own wounds as well as how to help others with theirs. And tonight we are talking to the wonderful Carey, who's got so much wisdom and heartbreak and a lot of things to share about her daughter, Jenna, who passed away from a tragic car accident. And I think that is something we all know somebody who has died in a car accident, or at least a friend of friends. And yet we are so awkward and we don't know what to say and we don't know what to do. And maybe our coworker was in that situation and we don't know how to help. So we're just here to interview Carey tonight, just get her perspective. And if you have lost a child, I know you are going to have some nuggets to take away and that you can relate to her with. And then if you haven't, like myself, hopefully we'll get to learn how we can help her and other parents who have lost children better. And together, and I know it sounds cheesy, but I really do believe it, together we will change the world with how we love one another better. So before we dive into the wonderful Carey, I do have a couple quick announcements. First of all, who am I? You might, maybe you're new here and you're like, well, who are you to talk about any of this stuff? Well, my name is Mickey Spear. As I mentioned earlier, I'm from Minnesota. And if you are watching, whether live or as a replay, in the comment section, let Carey and I know that you're here and where you're calling in from. We would love to be able just to know you're watching at any point, and then we can kind of go through and respond to your questions and comments that you have after our show. My mom passed away when I was 13 from cancer, and I spent the better part of a decade in that shock, numb, avoidance, keeping everything at arm's length as much as humanly possible, because I did not want to admit that I needed help. And I didn't want to admit that this was hard and that it was traumatic and difficult. Eventually, as you know, you can't outrun grief. So it caught up to me, and it was ugly when it did. But through lots of counseling, I realized for the first time in my life the power of being vulnerable and the power of actually leaning into our hardships. And that's why I wanted to now, a couple of years after that point, start a show to do exactly what we were talking about earlier, where we can come together and learn and encourage each other to keep processing, keep digging deep. And it can be grief, but it could be a bunch of other hardships too. Divorce, job loss, moving, so many things out there. And that's just the point of the show. So I'm so happy you're here. I can't wait for you guys to meet Carey just in a second. And if you wait till the end, you'll get to hear me perform a song live and talk about a couple products that kind of relate to the situation that might be able to help you be a little less awkward in situations going forward. Couple updates really quick. So many of you have messaged me and asked about my cats, which is so sweet. And I realized last week I didn't talk about that. I'm so sorry. Long story short, we had to rehome our two cats, and it was really a tough decision. They are doing well. They live out in a farm in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, and they are now indoor-outdoor cats with a very sweet lady who had a couple other cats who just needed some friends, and she is so sweet to them. They're adjusting slowly but surely, and I think I'm just grieving. There's no other way to say that other than I miss them, and I feel like I wish I could go back and somehow make them less anxious with all of our moves and somehow make us more compatible for each other. But this was absolutely the best call for both parties, but it doesn't make it easier. So thank you so much for asking. I have a new song coming out about that situation. I played it a couple weeks ago called Green Eyes Go. I did meet with a guitar player. We're moving full steam ahead on that. So keep your eyes peeled for that song this fall. And then the last other thing that I just wanted to say, a huge thank you to every single one of you who have gone onto Amazon and left either just a star rating or actually typed about how the book, which is My Heart Still Remembers, has helped you. I am humbled. I am honored. I'm so glad the people who are actually buying the book or who have received it as a gift are the ones leaving reviews versus the scammers who thought it would be funny to leave 1 and 2 stars without having bought the book. So thank you for fighting that. And if you're like, oh, shoot, I haven't done that yet, I'll make sure the link is in the comments. And you don't even have to write anything. You could just do a star review. And that would be so helpful for us trying to get off the ground. And for those of you who are like, what are you talking about? as a refresher, Amazon doesn't require you to buy a book before you leave a review. And they've got their fun little algorithm in every social media platform you can think about. And so they knew that family members of mine had bought the book, but they were removing their reviews. So that was frustrating. And they were leaving on reviews of people who had not bought my book, but were leaving 1 and 2 stars, which were tanking. It was just really frustrating. And they don't understand how small business works. And they don't understand that we start off our companies by networking our friends and our family. So it was just a very frustrating thing, but that's the world we live in. So again, if you have associated with this book in any way and it's been helpful, please just click on that link and leave a 5-star. It would be so grateful. But you guys don't want to hear me talk anymore. Let's bring on the wonderful Carey and hear her story and the wisdom that she has to say. Carey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you here. I wish you didn't have to be here, of course. No one wants to be a guest on this show. But I've had the pleasure of getting to know your story, and I would love for you to share it with this audience.
Well, it was January of 2019. My daughter, Jenna, who was 23 at the time, was in a car accident. She was speeding, going too fast on slippery roads and lost control. I never will forget getting that call from her fiance at the time. And he was in shock. I didn't even realize it until afterwards. But, just telling me that Jenna had been in an accident and it wasn't good. They ended up taking her to Mayo Clinic, where she passed away. And I don't know, it just, it was really, really rough to lose my only daughter, my firstborn child. It's not something that you ever think you're going to outlive your own child. And just the suddenness of it, where it was like, she wasn't sick. She had just moved within 10 miles of me. They had bought a house. They were planning on getting married. She had all these plans and dreams. She was an avid photographer. She just lit up a room everywhere she went. And it was like she was my sunshine. When she died, everything went dark. And it's been a struggle to find the light and the happiness in the little things again. I have another child, a son, who is approaching 23. And I'm not going to lie, it's got me a little nervous. Just because I don't want to lose him too.
Oh,
yeah, it just, at that age, they have so much of their life ahead of them and so many things that she'll never get to do now. And when people ask me, how many children do you have? I still say 2. And depending on the people, some of them I don't even tell them that she's gone. I'll say I have a daughter and a son, Jenna and Trent. Leave it at that, because it's too difficult to explain to them that she's deceased, that she's gone. Because doing that opens up the wound, and then I get emotional and then I'm embarrassed because I'm crying in front of a stranger, pretty much.
Mhm. I've always said, well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing. I am so sorry for your loss. I wish I could wave a magic wand and just bring us back in time. And I know you, of course, wish
I
that too.
know.
But I loved what you said about how you will always be Jenna's mom, and she should
Yeah.
always be brought up in conversation. So I feel like that's good for us to remember when we're talking to people who have lost a child, is be like, ask them about their other child, because there's still a parent to that child.
Yeah. And, and me and my mom we talk about memories of her all the time. And I love that. And it's the funny little anecdotes, like, when she was a little kid waiting to come see her baby brother and she couldn't stop talking, so her grandpa told her to zip it. She looked down at her shirt and said, "I don't have a zipper, Grandpa." It's just little things like that, you know, funny things that all little kids do. Um, and talking about that stuff, it helps keep, I think, their memory alive, and it makes you feel good to talk about them
Mm.
and not just about the sad stuff.
Right. And to that note, one of the things that I actually created after talking to someone else who lost a child was these memory cards, and I'm not sure if they're coming in clearly, but it says, "When we lose someone we love, it can feel like the world has moved on, while our hearts still yearn for them every day." And then on the inside, oh, this lighting is not terrible or not great, but I'll slide this way. It says, "We want to know that someone still misses them. We want to know that they made a difference, and we want to hear their names." And then it gives them a chance to say, "I want you to know I haven't forgotten. Since I know how precious memories are, I wanted to pass one along for you to keep." And it says a memory of blank, so that way you can say their name is, and then it gives them a spot to write a memory. And then the
Oh,
parent can then chop it off and save that memory card. So everybody in the comments, I'll put these memory card links. I just wanted to put that in there because I know how important memories are to these parents,
yeah.
especially you, of course. So I hope that somebody out there shares memories with you that you haven't heard before, because those are going to be new memories for you.
Oh, yes. And I think that, and especially as it's been 2.5 years now since she's been gone, the thing I've noticed is people do talk about her less.
Mm,
They ask about her less, and that's okay because that's just the way it is. There's nothing you can't control what other people do. But the people that are, that I'm close to in my life, we still talk about her a lot.
that's wonderful.
About the little funny things she would say and do and her quirky little habits and, all the unique things that made her Jenna.
Mhm. That is so precious. I'm so glad you have a support network around you that talks, because that's not very common.
No, it's not. I'm very lucky in that regard. My husband listens to me ramble on all the time, and I'm not sure how much of it he hears, but that's okay too.
Husbands.
And my mom is great. I mean, I can talk to my mom about anything. I have a couple really good friends that I can, call if I'm just having a rough day and, you know, thinking about her a lot and feeling kind of sad or just want to talk about her that I can call. Not everybody is that fortunate. Um, but there are a lot of really good grief support groups out there too.
Mm, that's awesome. I'm so glad that you have that network and those groups, and we have to talk through it. Like, we have to, have to,
Yeah.
have to. So I guess one of the things to kind of go back a little bit to how she died with the car accident component.
Yes.
Afterwards, I mean, it's different than any other. Every death comes with its different thing. How
Yes.
how I don't know. I just want to ask this because I feel like this is the show where we get to ask kind of questions all of us are kind of secretly thinking. So I apologize if this is offensive. This is not what I intend it to
Oh, no,
be.
no, no, no.
But is it hard to get back into a car after she
You,
passed away, or let other people get into a car?
that's actually, that's a really good question because it was. Um, but it was harder for me to drive than it was just to be in a car. Like when I would drive a car, it would make me feel more anxious than if I was a passenger because I could just not pay attention to what was going on and I would be fine.
Mm.
But if I would see people, if I was driving and people were driving recklessly, it would make me very anxious. That, and especially when when it was bad outside. If the weather was bad outside, the first the rest of that winter and then the following winter, I didn't wanna go anywhere, like, at all.
How
And
could
every
you?
time
It's so scary.
it is scary, and then, if you saw a wreck on the side of the road, which is very common, um, then it would just stir all that up again. And, yeah,
Mm.
it was very difficult to do that. It was more difficult to drive myself. I don't even think I drove at all for the first month after she died, like, not anywhere.
Mm.
I don't think I really wanted to go anywhere for quite some time
Yeah,
after
fair.
I really didn't. It was like I had no desire to get in a car.
Mhm.
Just didn't want to.
Right. Oh, and to kind of go back to that chapter after the couple weeks and after the couple months, can you just paint for us and the best of you can, what was
Mhm.
it like? What were you going through in those first couple months that people probably on the outside would have no idea?
The first I would say probably the first few weeks, it just numb, completely numb, going through the motions, trying to figure out how just to get through the day and not think about it because thinking about it was too hard. So it's almost like in the beginning, you kind of have to shut it off a little bit, which is difficult to do. And you can't always do it. Some days you're able to, and some days you're not. Um, I felt very out of sorts. Like my memory was one thing that was really, really bad in the beginning. I couldn't even just remember simple things. Um, I think when you lose a child, you're just like in a state of shock for quite some time where it doesn't seem real. It didn't seem real for a while. And then all of a sudden, the reality of it starts to sink in when, everybody else goes back to normal and you don't because your normal is now different. And you losing a child changes you as a person. There's no getting around that. It's just like a piece of your heart is gone. And learning learning to accept that's very challenging.
Mm.
And I don't know if I fully have accepted it. It may take time because
Oh.
there's a part of you that still at times gets angry. Like, why my child? Why did it have to be them? And there's no answer to that. There's no answer to that. And I've always been the kind of person that there has to be an answer. There's a question, there's an answer. There's no answer to this question. There's just no getting around it.
Oh my gosh, my heart. I'm over here crying. I'm not sure if the light's showing, but my heart is breaking for you. So virtual hug, sending
Thank
it all
you.
those hours apart, a virtual hug to you. But
Thank you.
as we there's so much I want to ask you about, but we only have half an hour, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible. The next thing I kind of you touched a lot on that shock and how you are different afterwards. If you met someone who just lost a child, what would you
Mhm.
kind of tell them, whether it be words of encouragement or what to expect?
I guess the biggest thing to expect is that you're not okay. And that is okay that you're not okay. Things are going to be weird. You're going to forget things. You're going to not feel like yourself. And it's important to listen to yourself, listen to your mind and your body and what it's telling you. If you need rest, rest. Um, don't rush into going back to work. I made that mistake and went back to work the week after my daughter died, and that was a complete disaster. And just taking the time that you need to do some of that initial healing, that just getting over that shock of it, and just being gentle with yourself.
Mm. Yeah, that is so beautiful. And that is so good for all of us to keep in mind, especially if we can encourage those that we know who have lost children to do those things. And to
Yes.
be like, hey, you seem to be running at a million miles an hour right now. Maybe it's time to peel it back a little bit.
I know. I know. And I think one other thing I've really noticed with grief is that a lot of times you'll keep yourself busy to not feel the grief, because it's easier to do that than it is to be vulnerable and feel it and feel through it, if that makes sense.
100%. That was what I did for 10 years. Yeah, I just kept super busy. And just anytime that thought would come up, pivot, go in a different direction. And I kept running and running. It's
Yeah.
exhausting.
And it is exhausting. And, I find myself doing that occasionally where, if I'm really sad about her, or, other things are going on in my life too, I am like, okay, I have to be doing something. I have to be doing something. And when I feel like that, where I feel like I'm wound like an 8-day clock, I sit down and I write. Because sometimes just getting out those frustrations, whether it be about your grief or whether it be about because somebody sent you a snarky email at work, whatever. Um, you know, you gotta get it out. You have to get it out somehow, whether it be talking to someone or writing it down, whatever works for you. If you don't get your feelings out and you keep them all bottled up, it's just going to it's just going to eat away at you until, I don't know. I
Mm.
just know that that can't be good.
No. Somebody once told me that if you think of yourself like a sink, you've got a faucet that's all the stress, and of course we can control the level of stress for some things. We can limit our social media. We can,
Yeah.
say no to some things, but things like grief, you cannot change that faucet. And then the question is, how's our drain? Are we able to, and the drain would be those activities that allow us to
Yes.
tears fall, like, and so many of us operate with a really heavy flow, and I don't mean that in a period sense, although I guess maybe we do too, but like a heavy faucet and like a needle thin drain. And so of course we feel overwhelmed, and of course we feel
Yeah.
overwhelmed because we are overwhelmed. And I think
E
that's such a good message that you just said about, you need to open that drain up and like actually let it flow, or else you're going to be backed up emotionally.
Exactly, and all that does is leads you down a path of just misery,
Mhm.
and it's just not worth it, and your loved one, your child or your loved one that you've lost wouldn't want you to do that. They would want you to be able to find happiness and, work through your stuff, for lack of a better word. I mean, grief is like riding on a boat. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. Some days are good, some days are bad, some days are worse.
Some days are a tsunami and you're on your little
Yeah,
rowboat.
yeah. It's trying to figure out the things that you can do for yourself to make those days that are like the tsunami not so turbulent.
Mhm.
And if you can find those little things, whatever it may be, some sort of outlet to, whether it be writing or art or, anything that you can just get your feelings out, I think is good.
Oh my gosh, we could talk for 12 more hours, but unfortunately, we're already up on our time, which, isn't it crazy how fast it goes?
Yes.
Um, I am so grateful to have you on the show. Thank you for your bravery. I know it's tough to come on and speak about this raw topic. So thank you so much for being here, Carey. We're so grateful for you.
You are very welcome.
And everybody, please give Carey a big, big, big thank you in the comments section. It takes a lot of guts to come on here, especially, so fresh in her loss. So please give her a big thank you, Carey. We are so grateful for you. On that note, I wanted to play a song. My heart still remembers, because Carey kind of hit on it. And I feel like this is something we have to remember with parents, especially who have lost children, is that they get to see all of their kids' friends or fiancés, siblings hit all these new milestones, and they don't get to see their child who passed away hit them. And from just the other parents that I've interviewed on the show, I just feel like my heart still remembers is the psalm that needs to be sung right now. And just a reminder for all those folks who haven't yet, this is in sync with this book called My Heart Still Remembers that I wrote. I'll make sure it's in the comment section. I know Carey had a copy of it. And speaking of drains, if you don't know where to start, if you're like, gosh, I know I've got a lot backed up, I just don't know where to begin. If journaling maybe is not natural for you, which I totally understand, it wasn't always natural for me, that can help. It's prompts. And this is a great gift to give to people who are grieving, and say, and let them know, write a little note that you haven't forgotten about their person. And if you want to, throw in a card with a memory in there too. Those memories are from what I can gather from every parent I have ever interviewed, are more precious than gold because they get to learn something new about their child that they didn't know before. So this is My Heart Still Remembers, and I'm going to dedicate it to Carey and Jenna. This town keeps buzzing, it looks the same. It's been a while since they've said your name. Yes, I know it seems like the world has moved on, but my heart still remembers every little thing. Your eyes, your smile, your laugh, your love, the way it felt when you held me. My heart still remembers. It's where you'll always be. Your spirit pulses through my veins with every new heartbeat. Sometimes the pain goes from flames down to embers, but my heart still remembers. Thank you guys so much. Carey, thank you for sharing your story. If you would like to hear the rest of that song, that was only a snippet of it. Don't forget, it's available on all platforms, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want to find it. Feel free to pass that song along as a resource to folks too. Well, until I see you next week, have a wonderful rest of your time. Have a fun and safe Labor Day, and I will see you guys later. Bye.